What's going on, YouTube? I am Germ here, and today we're going to be talking about what my next big Counter-Strike investment just might be. That's why we're looking at my profile right now, because I'm trying to hide the drama and the suspense of what this thing is actually going to be. This is my inventory. It's public. I know people sometimes are like, oh, what do you have? Or you should show us your inventory, blah, 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 blah. You can see everything. Obviously, I have a ton of stuff in storage units because very often I'm buying stuff in bulk, and I just need to have a lot of inventory space to be able to buy and sell a ton of stuff at once. I don't really care about hiding anything that I own. Some of the items I own as investments, some of the things I own as cash trading assets, whatever, but that's my inventory, blah, 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 blah. But what could be the next big thing added to it very, very soon? That's what we're going to be talking about in this video today. And this is going to be a little bit crazy, probably a little bit controversial. I can see this video getting some love, but also a decent amount of hate as well. And this video is either going to age really, really well or very, very poorly going forward in the future. But it is a investment thesis that I at least find very, very interesting. I still am not fully decided if I love it or hate it, if it's a good idea, terrible idea, anything in between. But sometimes stuff like that makes the best content, and sometimes that stuff, is the ideas that go down in history in a good or a bad way. It can be famous, it can be infamous, whatever you want to say. But in this video today, we're going to be talking about graffitis. Now, graffitis as an investment got very, very interesting all of a sudden once CS2 came out. Now, I'm going to pull up this thread from CSGO Market Forum, the subreddit, but this is what kind of piqued my interest and made me reconsider this whole thing. But this is not the first time I've heard of this. These are not the first people to come up with this idea. This has actually been a thing since CS2 dropped and the addition of the care package into CS2. Now, obviously in CSGO, you would get drops after your games when you leveled up, whatever. You would get drops. You'd get like a case or a gun or a graffiti or whatever random cheap other stuff you'd get. Obviously, sometimes you have rare drops like some of the better cases, but generally you're getting a cheap case, a cheap skin, or a cheap graffiti. And, people were usually the most upset to get a graffiti because guns are cool. You can use them in game. They look cool. Even the worst skins, it's at least a skin. It's better than having a default gun. Cases, people like opening cases. Cases are awesome assets. They're really great investments. But then graffitis were just kind of trash. And obviously the history of graffitis, I think back in the day in CS, you used to be able to do like custom graffitis and all this kind of weird stuff. And then, Valve kind of got rid of all that for probably good reasons. I'm pretty sure good reasons, if I'm remembering correctly. And they added these new graffitis. And obviously the graffitis, especially on the lower end, are pretty trash. If you look at a lot of the graffitis out there on the market, a lot of them are worth 3 cents on the Steam community market. The art style is very ugly. The graffitis themselves are ugly. You only get a limited number of sprays. Overall graffitis were just very, very poorly received by the community, and that's what led them to being, not very highly sought after. Obviously, they get dropped at insane rates, and nobody really wants them, so there was huge supply and low demand. But all of a sudden, now that care packages have been introduced into CS2, you get an option whenever you get your first level up of each week between pretty much always one case, either one or two guns, I've seen both, and then either one or two graffitis. Generally, it's one case, one gun, and two graffitis, but I've seen one case, two guns, and one graffiti before. But right now, I don't know, 90+% of the time, 95, 99% of the time, people are taking the case because, again, cases are really the S+ tier investment, and even casual players like cases because they know they can sell them for a decent amount of money, or they like opening cases, or they just don't want some trash graffiti. So just everyone's taking the case, and then people are generally taking the guns because sometimes guns can be of decent value. Sometimes you can just use guns, or sometimes you just take the gun because at least it's not a graffiti. So that makes a ton of sense. So all of a sudden, the idea here, and posted in this Reddit thread, is multiple graffitis have increased a lot lately, especially ones that were previously worth 3 to 5 cents. Many of those are now up 6 to 10. With the new drop system, literally no one picks the graffitis. The only selling pressure is people who randomly decide to check if their graffiti is worth something, which is not very common. And even if people did that, if they did randomly check if their graffiti was worth something, oftentimes it would be almost worthless. It would be something that is worth 3 cents, but it would be even worth less than 3 cents because so many of these graffitis have 5, 10, 15, 25,000 listings or whatever. And if you list your thing for 3 cents, it's never going to sell. So essentially, a lot of these graffitis end up being worth Nothing. They literally end up being worthless. So why would you ever take a graffiti? That's what leads us to the potential supply crunch of graffitis in the future and why they could potentially be an interesting investment. Now, obviously, in investing, there are two sides. There is supply and there is demand. Nothing in CS2 has really increased the demand on graffitis. The demand seems pretty stable. Maybe it's even dropping over time because we're getting, further and further away from any amount of hype or excitement or anything surrounding graffitis. But I would assume the demand for graffitis is relatively stable. But if there is a potential supply crunch, now this might be sometime soon. This might be years into the future. It might take forever to eat into the huge supply of graffitis that is out there. But is there some potential chance that we could see some kind of supply crunch on graffitis in the future because the supply of them is going to dry up with no one choosing them as their care package? I don't know, but I think that sounds like a very, very interesting investment thesis to me. And there are some people out there who are investing in this right now. This guy says, top comment, call me stupid, but I bought 3,000 heart graffitis for 1 cent each. They are now 3 to 4 cents. I have no real expectations for my storage boxes and will probably forget them in a couple months. But when I open them in 30 years and buy my kids a Lambo, I'm sure I will think of you all. And I think that might be a very, very interesting play. And it might be something I want to try out, putting 50, 100, a couple $100 aside into a graffiti case or a storage unit or whatever and setting it aside and seeing what happens. Now, obviously, again, we can take a look at some of the graffitis, but again, a big problem with graffiti is that they're very ugly. The art style is disgusting. People don't even like graffitis in general, but they really don't like these super, super ugly graffitis. Now, there are some really cool graffitis like Crown and Howling Dawn and some of the stuff that are actually somewhat valuable, but most of the time you're getting something pretty ugly. But I do think that some of the cooler, more usable, more highly demanded, if I was going to use a graffiti, some of these could be a little bit more interesting. Like that guy in the comment said, the heart graffiti is an okay one. It doesn't look so ugly. I could see myself, potentially doing a heart in game. There's a lot of reasons, but mostly you're looking for emotes that are funny when you get a kill, when you win a round, when you ninja defuse something to just spam on the wall real quick. And graffitis actually get used a fair amount in Valorant. So there is some potential for them to be usable if they weren't so ugly or whatever. But I do think this heart at, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cents could be an interesting pickup. Again, understand that you can get these cheaper on third-party marketplaces. You always have to keep that in mind. I do think another one is the loser graffiti. It comes in a bunch of different colors, but again, just dropping an L on somebody, that could be funny. This one, 3 to 4 cents. And again, I bet you could find it for 1 or 2 cents on a lot of third-party marketplaces. I think this eco one, since it's at least a gun, it's kind of cool. It's kind of different. Doesn't look so ugly or terrible. The eco, I think, is kind of cool. It's not, I'm not saying it's my top choice or anything like that, but I think it's okay. I like this quick draw one as well, giving it a little whatever. That's kind of a funny graffiti. I could see that one being usable. And again, this one is on the cheaper end in this 3 cent range. And I also really like this NaCl because, hey, dropping a salty on someone, that could always be funny. That could be spammable. That could be usable. Now, the NaCl, since it only comes in white, I think that's why it has such a high quantity. But you can see the quantities here are crazy. We're talking 52,000 NaCls. It's going to take a lot for these things to move up in price. But again, you don't need it to move up a ton. If you're buying these things for 3 cents or even 2 or 1 cents on third-party marketplaces, you only need a semi-decent supply crunch to happen with people just not adding to the supply of these. Again, a lot of these quantities were from people getting dropped these at a crazy rate in CSGO, which is not going to be happening in CS2. The rate that people are getting these is going to drop off. Now, how long, how fast, whatever it's going to take for this thing to dry up, I don't know. But again, you don't need these to go up much. If this goes up to 6 cents, 10 cents, 12 cents, 15 cents, you could be making an absolute killing. And there is some tiny little semblance or something that reminds me of, hey, back in the day when cases were 3 cents, eventually they go on this crazy run. Now, obviously, cases way, way, way better than graffitis. I'm not even really trying to compare them. I'm just making a case for something that is kind of an afterthought, a drop in game, blah, 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 being very, very cheap. And then eventually, maybe for a bunch of different reasons, potentially going up over time. And again, there has been, ever since the release of CS2, there has been some investors in the community thinking about if graffitis could possibly be a good investment because of the new care package system in CS2. Again, I don't really know how I feel about this, but might it be worth setting aside a small portion of your portfolio or setting aside one storage unit or whatever and taking a chance on some of this stuff? I think it might just be, and I think this might be the next purchase that I make in CS investing. But either way, I just wanted to make this video because, again, I think this idea and this thesis and this strategy is, even if it's wrong, even if it's terrible, even if it doesn't work out, or even if you think it's totally stupid, it's at least thinking. And there's not enough thinking in the CS markets, and there's not enough strategizing. There's not enough using your brain and using logic and using reasoning to come up with different strategies and ideas. So either way, I thought this would be a cool video idea, and I'd love to hear what you guys think. Do you think graffitis have any chance, any potential? I don't know. Again, this video could age very, very poorly. I could look like a giga-brain, 5-head Chad genius, or it could look like an absolute idiot when graffitis are still 3 cents 10 years from now. Who knows? But I think there's a very, very real potential that we could see a run to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 cents, something like that, and actually get a very nice return on something like a small graffiti storage unit or portfolio or something like that. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But I did want to get this out to you guys. But pretty much it was this video today. Hopefully I catch you guys in the next one. Until then, peace.